This last season or semesters, or I'm not quite sure what to call our 9 months of worship together. Anybody got any ideas? What do we call it? Church? Yeah, academic year. So anyway, once a month, as most of you know, we've had these small group ministries dedicated to learning about the new Shared Values program. And this is the last of this year's series. And so I wanted to not exactly wrap it up, but keep it alive, because I have a suspicion we're going to be revisiting these topics as we go along, since they are so meaty, really, so much opportunity to discuss. So anyway, the UUs have a relatively short history in the realm of established religions. We commingled two faith traditions in 1962. That was just, like 63 years ago? It was a bit of a struggle, as there were strong ideas from each tradition, which didn't necessarily mesh seamlessly. In my mind, it felt like the rationalist, humanist Unitarians were marrying the mysterious spiritual Universalists. What could go wrong? Well, actually, it seems to have worked out pretty well. Well, I'm no religious historian, and in fact have come a little late to the game with only 10 years of membership in this church, and only about half of that as an active member. But here we are, 63 years after our faith traditions joining, and the marriages holding mostly. In the early days, I didn't pay much attention to the actual details of our church and our details of our faith. I'd heard that we were covenantal but not creedal, and understood that to mean that I didn't have to adhere to a group fantasy about the tenets of my faith. So since I haven't actually studied this religion, or any religion for that matter, I learned through osmosis. And I found out about the Unitarians. It's more than okay to have a diversity of beliefs amongst us. In fact, it's considered a strength. We are not bound by a single creed, which I think leads people to say, oh, you're a Unitarian, you can believe anything, which I always take offense at. Oh, that's what you think, hmm? We are not bound by a single creed, but it does not mean we don't have beliefs. Christian patriarchal traditions can be set aside. There are other much more compelling reasons to join with other Unitarians, Universalists, such as valuing community, focusing on social justice, having a group of sympathetic friends and fellows that we can sail through this life with more support than if we were single. I really began to learn about our faith with the onset of the pandemic, with the changes we faced, particularly not being able to meet in person. When that practice of staying home began, I had to abandon my career as a ceramics artist working at the Archie Bray, as our student education building and all the programs were shut down. So me being an active doer kind of person, I was looking around for something else to do, and I thought, aha, my other community, the Unitarians. So I decided to get more involved. And I looked for a way to be of service to our church. And through volunteering for leadership positions, I now have a lot more knowledge about what we really do believe in, what it says in our bylaws, what it says in not just our bylaws, but the Unitarian UUA bylaws, which is where the 7 principles used to live. So this brings me to today's topic, the heart of UU beliefs, the shared value statements. So here's a little history. You'll find the text for our beliefs and practices inside those UUA bylaws, known as Section 2. You can find all this stuff online, of course, uua.org. When I joined this church, those practices were called the 7 principles, with the 6 sources underlying the principles. I took those principles to be similar in a way to the 10 Commandments. It felt to me like we were being instructed about what our ethical behaviors should be and how we might treat and regard each other in our wider community. But the UUA, the nationwide UUA, was bound by the rule that every 15 years we have to review the documents and update them. And so the 7 principles came into view as time for updates. And I think what the motivating factor was about changing them, which I'll point out, the 7 principles haven't been around forever. They really are not cast in bronze. But in my short connection to the UU Church, they might as well have been cast in bronze because they're really good. And I have referred to them many times in my life when I needed guidance, when my behaviors were off beam, when I needed help, basically with compassion and love. So it really was a shock to learn, I think it was in 2013, not 13, 23, to learn that the UUA wanted to revisit and rewrite those 7 principles, especially when they presented a first draft of those revisions in the winter of 23. In our coffee group, Katie Knight brought copies of the text to us, and we read the proposals, and were not exactly enraptured. It was a 2-page, single-spaced, typewritten document, so wordy it was hard to comprehend, especially when compared to the succinct 7 principles. It felt to me like the committee that was appointed to rewrite that section of the bylaws were highly educated university professors with multiple PhDs, and they wanted to cross every T and dot every I. And so the language was very wordy, and so much of it that it kind of glossed over the essential truths. So I think it was appropriate to be upset about that. Anyway, because we had been charged with needing to review those documents, part of the reason for that was to demonstrate that, yes, we are a living tradition, meaning that we are alive and responsive and are able to change with the times. So then over the next 2 years, we went through a journey of conferring, debating, rewording, and refining until finally, in June 2024, 80% of the attendees at the UAA General Assembly voted to approve the new document. 80%. When I heard that, I thought, whoa, this document must have been really improved. Because I think if they'd had us vote on the first one, it would have been 20% approval. So I still found the whole thing quite mysterious. In fact, I didn't even know what the name of the new so-called principles were, and it took me quite a bit of searching around online to find out that, in fact, it wasn't until the fall that they're called shared principles. Oh, that was illuminating. But along with writing the new shared principles, we were told that the new shared values, that the 7 principles were kind of going to be put on the back burner, and we were assured that we could continue to use them if we wanted to, but they were being replaced by the shared values. Well, that was pretty alarming, really, at least to me. So I think the idea that the 7 principles were, shall we say, static. You're told to how to behave and what to do, but it wasn't exactly a conversational gambit. And what the UUA wanted to do was to open up conversation and communication and connection with us in our fellowships. And so what they chose, the new shared values, basically one word for each value. And then fortunately, they added a sentence that helps pad out each one. But the main thing was that they put love at the center. Now, I didn't see love in the 7 principles. Maybe I missed it, but I've never seen that concept in there. So I thought that was kind of a big deal. And one of the things that I discovered is that the motivation for bringing love into the picture with our new guiding shared values came from the Universalists. Now, I don't know if many of you have actually looked into the differing characteristics of the Unitarians versus the Universalists, but the Unitarians tended to be academic, brainy, a little more, what can I say, straight-laced maybe, although that's not really true anyway. But as opposed to the Universalists, which really were kind of ooey-gooey, space cadets, focusing on the mysteries of life, of the unknown things that we all, I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, of what may happen in this world, what may be reality, but you can't nail it down. And so having these two traditions come together, I think, for instance, when I refer to what church I belong to, I almost always say, well, I'm a Unitarian. But after I read about the Universalists, I thought, you know, I'm a Universalist. So I tend that way, and I was very pleased to read some commentary about the new shared values having love at the center. And I'm going to read this thing. Drawing from the Universalist heritage, love is the purest expression of that which is holy. For our forebears, love was the most essential aspect of God, however you want to use your name for God. And love was never reserved for just a few, but was extended to everyone. Our shared values work very differently than a creed or statement of belief. You don't take a test to belong to our fellowship. No proof is required. No big statement about what you do or do not believe. Our faith community is held together by a covenant. That means promises we make to each other in our community, and the shared values underlie those promises. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. And the values we share include all the following, which we hold as inseparable and deeply interconnected. So here's the list. Interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence and acknowledge our place in it. Pluralism. We are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. Justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all feel welcome and can thrive. Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. And the last value, equity. We declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. And of course, as I have said, love is what unites us. So one thing I was curious about, because many people I know had such resistance to the new shared values. So I spent some time comparing it to the 7 principles. And it turns out pretty much everything in the 7 principles is still here. It's reworded, the relationships are a little bit different, but there's a little bit more. And the little bit more is generosity and love. And so I found now that I have embraced these 7 shared values. No, I've embraced these new words, and I think that since it's the main guidance that we receive from our fellowship, particularly since we don't have the 10 Commandments, and we don't now we do not prioritize the 7 principles, although they're still there. That being non-creedal, well, actually, I'm going to dispute that a little bit. We're generally non-creedal in that we don't have a set of beliefs that are demanded of us, but we do have these shared values. And that might not be a creed, but it's certainly a guiding light. So I wanted to read one last poem here about this, and then maybe we can get in our smaller groups and discuss it. This is written by the same person, I think, who wrote the commentary about our shared values that I just quoted. And also, it happens to be on the front page of the OOS today, if you want to have a copy to take home. Accepting one another is the truest form of faithful living. The search for truth, our constant star. We pledge our hearts, minds, and hands to challenge injustice with courage, to find hope in times of fear, and to live out our Unitarian Universalist values every day as a beloved community. Thus do we covenant with each other and all that is sacred in life.